Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. That was my dear friend Jane Seaman, who's going to be coming on any moment. She is waiting in the wings along with 4 other incredible artists that I'm very excited to be bringing on this show today. So today I begin my show as I do every Friday by asking, who or what are you celebrating today, and how can I celebrate you? I do believe that if we take the time to celebrate each other, the world would be a better place instead of tearing everybody apart all the time. And that's basically my brand. That's what I'm all about. But I do walk the walk and I talk the talk. And so do all of our guests today. So I'm going to bring on Jane first. You just saw her. And that clip was from last night. So Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel so honored. And I've been delighted every time I've been in your presence because you are just a whole beam of light wherever you are. You're just the warmest, most radiant person. And you like to wear the bright, glittery clothes, which...
That's right. That's right. Well, you should be an agent, Jane.
I think I've done just about all there is in show business.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I mean, you have worn so many hats in this business. Out of all the hats that you've worn, which hat fits you the most comfortably?
You know, honestly, what I adore is the teaching and the directing. I mean, I love singing. I will never stop singing. I'm still studying singing. I'm learning my craft even more to this day. And people never knew what voice are you? I sing it all, baby, low, high. But anyway, I love the reason I love teaching and directing is that there's something very, very special about working with people who have this desire to express something and they don't quite know how to get at it. And I think the gift that I have is helping them unlock that special thing about them. And I adore it when suddenly that just blossoms before our eyes. I've taught these group workshops for decades. And as you witnessed Debbie Tony, for example.
Yes. And, we'll talk about Debbie for a moment because I saw the show. She calls herself Double Trouble. I have to say this, from the moment that she walked into the room, her energy, permeated every corner of that room. And what she brings to an audience, I've talked about this before. Carol Channing said that there are entertainers and there are performers. A seal is a performer. The seal is only interested in getting that fish. And it will balance the ball. It will flap its fins. It will do whatever it needs to do. But an entertainer is always about the audience. And she is having such a great time seeing the show. I was in pain from grinning from ear to ear the entire show. Congratulations. I just love her.
She has taken 3 of my workshops, 21, 23, 24. The first one, she came in and she'd been struggling with her performing career. She came in kind of like a little wet cat from the rain. And I just kept this person, this wonderful talent. And she hadn't been using her voice a lot at that point. And then this wonderful, wonderful talent just kept bubbling up. And every time she got in front of an audience, she just comes alive and she sparkles. And I just said, Debbie, and she says this in this act, Debbie, you have to have your own show. And that is absolutely 100% true. And so now I introduced her to the Mac world a year ago, and now everyone in the Mac world knows her, the Manhattan Association of Cabarets in New York City. And so it's been wonderful to watch her bubble up. The bubbling block.
I want to share something that happened to me on Tuesday night. After 36 years, I made my debut at the New York Cabaret Convention.
You made your debut?
After 36 years. And the response that I've been getting has been incredible. Not that I had to prove myself, but I really felt that I proved myself on Tuesday night. I walked away feeling really good about that. And we know, Jane, when you've had a bad night. You do. But I felt so, and it wasn't just about me getting out there and doing what I do. It
Mhm.
was about sharing that space with other great artists.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the excitement of being in this business, the
Mhm.
collaborative process. When did you feel that you wanted to be on the other side of the footlights? I know that you're still on both sides of the footlights.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
was your move to start nurturing other people in the business? Because many people don't do that.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. I started with a therapist many years ago, and she told me, frankly, as a performer, you need to put your focus on other people. Now, this is something you learn in church. Give service to other people. Do for other people. But that's my secret. A therapist told me many decades ago, put your focus on other people. And that has been a really wonderful thing for me, especially with my upbringing, blah, blah, blah. We all have our whatever. I don't think anybody, I mean,
We'll compare notes.
right, right. We all have our issues. There's no perfect human anywhere. But yeah, that I think was a key for me, is to, and it is still to this day. I'm still doing these workshops. And honestly, there was a time that I would not let people into my workshop if they didn't have certain skills. They had to be really professional, blah, blah, blah. One time I had all the waiters from the Red Eye Grill. All those people have moved on and now they're all movie stars or casting directors in Hollywood. They all go in waves. Now I've got a group of people that some of them have never been on a stage before. And one of them, in fact, is a nurse. She came in though, and the class,
Ellen, are you listening?
she's a nurse. She came
Yes.
into the class the other night, first time. She's a friend of one of the other performers who encouraged her. She sang The Rose and she blew us away because she's got this natural thing that she wants to do. And so I'm giving them that opportunity. And so, to my great delight and surprise, last summer, these very beginner people, except I had some that are really advanced. I always teach a mixed bag, young, old. I've got one 15-year-old and this one 83-year-old.
No,
And
that
anyway,
but
anyway,
you brought up a wonderful point. Leslie, my brain just, I want to go Leslie Jones, and that's not it. But anyway, I can't think of what I was about to say. It went right out of my head about giving service. I have to tell you something, and I'm going to sound like Pollyanna when I say this. Every morning when I sit down at my computer,
Mhm.
the first thing I say before I turn it on is, how can I be of service today?
I
And
know
I
this.
do
I know
that.
this about you. This is what's really attracts me to you. I love this about you.
And I truly mean that. Well, we're going to bring on our next guest in just a moment. But before we do, because we are talking about usefulness today, and I've got some random questions that I'm going to throw out at each of you today. But do you believe that artists have a responsibility to be useful to society? And we pretty much talked about this. Or is it enough to simply create from the heart?
I don't think that artists are necessarily aware of what they're producing. They do it because they must. They just absolutely must. It's something that their soul feels. They feel the angst of what's happening in the universe, and they must do it. It's not something they feel obliged to do for others necessarily. But I also just want to throw one thing in here, is that I had the opportunity to hear Andre de Shields at a talk back a couple years ago at Westport Playhouse after Ain't Misbehavin'. And
Mm,
the first he is a philosopher extraordinaire if anyone's ever heard him speak extemporaneously.
absolutely.
And he said he said the stage is a sacred platform. That's where we go to church. That's where we express the things that humans can't necessarily express in their everyday lives. And then when we see it brought forward in a production of some kind, go, oh, that's what I'm missing, or that's what I felt, or that's what I wanted to tell my spouse, or tell my daughter, or tell my best friend, that you can't do in daily life, especially now that everybody's like, people are losing the art of conversation, the younger generation.
That is the main reason I left social media. No, I did. Because this is what I want. I want this not only here, but in real life as well. So, Jane, we're going to bring on our next guest. Actually, you're going to help me bring on the next guest because there are 4 people waiting in the wings.
Okay.
And you're going to pick a number 1 through 4, and I will hit a button.
Okay, I will pick a number, but just please bring up later in this Blue Moon and Merrily We Roll Along the film. Got to talk about that.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'll choose a number. I'll choose a number. 1 to what? 1 to 4, you said?
1 through 4.
3.
And that's my dear friend Judy Simmons. I haven't seen you in ages, Judy.
Hello.
Yeah, so Judy, you can talk about anything that Jane and I have been talking about, or you can take us in a completely different direction.
Well, it's interesting because I sort of want to say ditto, ditto, ditto to everything Jane said, because I'm also a teacher of cabaret and all of that too. And it's very important to me. But I think one of the topics that you were talking about when you asked us to be on was the usefulness of what we do. And I think it's so important to touch, educate, and comfort people. And we're there to lift their spirits. We're there to have changed the quality of their lives a little bit. And cabaret is very near and dear to my heart. But I was in Washington, D.C., and when I was a cabaret fellow at Eugene O'Neill in 1995, they laughed at me and they said, there is no cabaret in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, they were correct. But I decided that I wanted to change that. And so
you did.
Yes, and I did. And so, first of all, I had to beg the theaters that I was working at to run cabaret series, and they ignored me for many, many years. But I persisted, and finally, one of the heads of a signature theater at that time said, "Okay, Judy, let's talk about that." And that's how I was able to bring Richard down. And he was so wonderful. And my daughter texted me today, and I've got to tell you this. And she said, oh my gosh, I remember when he came to our house. I loved him. He was so wonderful. So you have a big lot in my family. But
I have a photograph. I have an old New York Times paper. I've saved the paper, believe it or not.
Yes.
You and Barbara Cook.
I know. And I have a very not beautiful expression on my face. I was asked to be one of the people she coached at Kennedy Center when she came in town. They wanted DC singers to come up. And I have this astonished expression on my face. More people called me. I heard from people all over, and they're like, you're in the New York Times. It was huge. So that was my big story. That was what I was in the Times. But I think that it's, in echoing what Jane said, to me, it's so important. The art of cabaret, there's really nothing like it, the intimacy of it. When people are sharing their souls in a certain sense. And like you say, I was teaching all ages too, because everybody it deserves that chance. Mm-hmm. And so one exciting thing another thing about usefulness, in 1997 in DC, Wendy Lane Bailey, and I was one of the founding members, formed the DC Cabaret Network, which is still going strong. And we set our goals for training people, finding venues, because there still were no venues. The series were a little bit more, they were people that were actually professional performers on the series that I ran. Mm-hmm. But it was such a joy to see that people today that I trained years ago are having real careers in cabaret in the DC area. And we have venues, we have all these things we did not have. And so, to me, the art of cabaret is so unique and so special and so personal and so important. And when I went to Kansas City, for a while after I left DC, I was living there. There was no cabaret there. They were musical reviews. And lots of good theater, lots of good music. Okay, now I'm in Tucson. If it says cabaret on the sign, it's a strip club.
That's right.
My heart.
No, it's true. Yes. True.
What can I tell you, Jane? This is not good. But anyway, so there's really no cabaret here. Again, a lot of fine musicians, a lot of tribute shows come through and other things. So the other day I did a show in a beautiful Tucson theater. with my accompanist, Jeff Halpern, who used to be a Broadway conductor and music director in New York. And he happens to live here now. He's a very good friend. And we actually started working together in Kansas City. But we did a show, and we were told by the woman that was running this musical matinee series, she said, "Now you can't be too twisty." Well, what the heck does that mean? Twisty. Hello, cabaret. Let's talk. Yeah, twisty. So we decided to just forge ahead and do what we normally do.
Good for you.
Audience response, who are used to having not real cabaret at all. The audience response was just phenomenal and far beyond what I could have dreamed of. And they said afterwards that several people said, and I appreciate the accolade, but it was more important to me that they got to see Cabaret, that they had never seen anything like that. And they liked it, and they were laughing, and they got us, and we were a little twisty, okay? But that's what's so wonderful about Cabaret. It can be all ages. It can be, I used to say to people, you don't really have to sing, because you're telling a story. It's about, that's what is the most wonderful thing. You're telling stories. You know, it's not about my favorite musical comedy songs, not at all. It's really truly personal choices of what's important to a person and a performer. But anyway, so I couldn't be happier to be on your program. And you were wonderful. I've always said, Jane, I'm echoing you again. Richard, there's nobody like you. And the support you give performers is extraordinary, because without you, a lot of people would not have careers. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Well, we're going to bring on our next guest. But before we do, my question for you is, how do you define usefulness when it comes to your own art? Is it about inspiring others, communicating ideas, or simply showing up as your authentic self?
I think it's kind of all of the above, because I'm so passionate about cabaret, and I work so hard to make sure others can experience it or perform it or whatever. And yes, it's a thrill to be on that stage. It's a thrill to share. I always want people to feel better when they walk out that door after a show that I've done or anybody's done. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's an extremely important art form for me. It means the world. And I do professional. I mean, I'm an actress also, so I do a lot of other things, but you're constricted by others people's words in that. And in cabaret, you are yourself. You are your authentic self.
And also in how you want to interpret those words. So
yes, exactly. There's a freedom in cabaret that you cannot have in regular theater and proscenium stage, where you cannot reach out to the audience in the same way.
Absolutely. Well, I would like to bring on our next guest. Actually, you're in the Monty Hall seat.
Oh, God. Okay.
Door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3?
Okay. I'm looking for door number 3.
And speaking of cabaret, well, let's get a sample and we'll bring her on after this.
Somebody hold me too close. Somebody hurt me too deep. Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive. Being alive. Somebody need me too much. Somebody know me too well. Somebody pull me up short and put me through hell and give me support for being alive. Make me alive. Make me alive. Make me confused. Mock me with grace. Let me be used. Vary my days alone.
Now that's cabaret and so much more. Lisa, welcome to the show.
I was like, oh, wow. Italians, we love moving our hands. I teach my students, I'm like, never do that. I'm watching myself. With the hands.
Yes, you can break the rules once in a while. That's what cabaret is about.
It was about being authentic.
Yes. Well, Lisa, you can add to what we've been talking about, or you can take us in another direction. You've got the platform.
My favorite question was when you said, oh, the theme is going to be usefulness. And I literally think about that, kind of every day, and ditto to everything you've said and Jane said and Judith has said. My work as a speech therapist and a singing teacher, I just feel like if I can make somebody's life like 10% better, like I get choked up saying it. Like singing is our voice. It's like it heals the whole body, like all the bodies, the physical body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, and we need it. And if we have, a lot of people say to me, oh, I want to come for a lesson, but I don't know if I can sing. And I'm like, that's the exact reason to come to me, because most people can sing. And I even have people say, oh, well, I can't sing on pitch. I even have a device because of the speech therapy. I have a device people can put on their heads to like hear the it's like an auditory feedback device. So even people who don't think they can sing on pitch, we can get you to do that, and singing is just, it's like yoga. Like it's good for you, and you should do it until you die, and it'll make you live longer.
Studies have shown that people dealing with Alzheimer's are able to communicate through song. I've said this time and time and time again. I believe that if everybody began every day with a show tune, there'd be no strife in the world. I truly believe that. I get up every morning. I sit down at my desk. I've got this great calendar. Peter Felicia has this great calendar, and it's a song a day. And I ask my device to play this song. And then, and then what it does, it creates an entire mix built around that song.
What is the name of this person? Peter who?
Peter Felicia, who's a writer and a critic.
Okay,
and it's
writing
the
it
show
down.
tune for today.
Okay.
Peter, if you're watching, so it's right here on my desk every day. That's how I begin my day. So Lisa, you and I met many, many years ago in San Francisco.
Yes,
and what I love hearing these stories is that so many people have created cabaret in these areas outside of New York City. You lived in San Francisco for a long time before you came to New York. What was the easy process for coming to New York, and what was very different or difficult for you?
Well, what was funny was when I was in, I grew up in Bayonne, and I used to do like kiddie cabaret in the city with, I think I've told you these stories. Like I used to do, like the people who did these kiddie cabarets were like crazy, like Sarah Jessica Parker and Bradley Kane, and just like Deborah Gibson or Debbie back then. And so it was like I had been doing cabaret since I was a little kid, and it was like I was successful at it in my mind. But when I was I changed careers. I did, some musical theater, but then once I was gonna have kids, I thought I would want to be home at night. So I became a speech therapist, and I sang, I still did, I would sub for the bands, or I would do a small musical theater, regional type thing. But I wasn't doing it full time. So I was like, I really need to do something. Let me do cabaret again. And it was really hard. And then I went to San Francisco, and I was Lisa from New York. And then it was really easy. And then when I came to New York after that, I was Lisa from San Francisco. And it was fantastic. Everything was great, because out there I had a lot of great, great, great opportunities that I wouldn't have had here because, it's just a smaller place. So I was able to, sing in these, the Richmond Ermit AIDS Foundation benefits and the Teddy Care. And we were singing alongside like Bonnie Raitt and Rita Moreno. They were the neighbors. They were the locals, because they all had a place nearby, and they would come as the headliners. So I had these incredible opportunities. So when I came back to New York, then it was easier. You know, it
Oh,
just,
that's great.
because I was Lisa from San Francisco.
Well, I'm going to bring on one of our next guests in a moment. You're going to help me do that. And we're going to possibly go in a different direction. But I want to ask you, can art be useful without having a clear purpose? Or do you find that the usefulness needs an intention? And how do you balance the creativity with the meaning of what you do?
So it's funny you say that, because I have some very specific, useful types of music. You know, when I do a show, I try to get a message across. I'm wearing Meg Flather's mother's
Well,
scarf right now. We're going to do a show called Real Joy, and it talks about the realness of the holidays, and that it's real joy, all the, you know, finding the magic in the mess. And I do meditation music and prayer, you know, spiritual music. There's actual purpose there. But sometimes if I play Pangea, right, we're just doing a couple sets of songs in the front lounge, and it's joyful for me and my pianist, and yet it takes people out of what they're doing. So I think whatever, as long as, you know, we're talking about showing up authentic and enjoying and being in the moment and being present, and I just think it's just useful. Yes, it's great to have an intention, but sometimes, like when we make those sets, we do make sure it's people. We call the sets for the people, because we want to make sure there's stuff people can relate to, so they can just take me away. So
okay. Well, it's interesting that the three cabaret artists came together, because our next two guests are authors, and they are as different as two different people could possibly be. So you pick a number, one or
Oh,
two,
me.
and I will bring on the next guest.
I mean, I'm sorry to leave one out, but one is the loneliest number. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with one, because it is the loneliest number. So
Well, I love this
they
man,
say.
and he has an incredible book called Broadway Nation, which we're going to talk about. So, David, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
And again, you can talk about anything that we've spoken about, or you can take us in a different direction.
Well, usefulness is a great subject, because in writing the book, I've written this book about the history of the Broadway musical, a complete history of the Broadway musical. The subtitle is How Immigrant Jewish, Queer, and Black Artists Invented the Broadway Musical. And it really is told through that lens, although it's also a complete history of the Broadway musical. And in the introduction, I had to figure out, how am I introducing this book? And this speaks to the usefulness thing that we're talking about, I think, because I actually think we need to own the usefulness of what we do. And that so many people will dismiss musical theater, and I include cabaret in that as just as much, is that we'll think that it's not something that's important or useful to society. And so I started researching that. And in the introduction, I talk about, since the beginning of time, every culture in the world has created some form of musical theater where they use song, dance, and speech to tell stories. It's actually part of our DNA is in it, basically. We are built to interpret the world. It's how we figure out the world. And then I was so thrilled as I was writing this. I actually just discovered something that was only discovered in 2022. Researchers have discovered that there's a neuron in our brain that only activates with singing, not with instrumental music or talking. So there literally is something in our bodies and the makeup of being human that responds to singing and lights up, activates because we're hearing singing. So it absolutely, to me, just reinforces the idea that this is not just a useful thing. This is a vital, crucial thing that we do, that musical theater artists do to respond to the world. I mean, literally worldwide. And of course, I talk about all these other forms of musical theater in the book, just very briefly. I sort of list them, and then to say that then the Broadway musical is the most recent incarnation of this inherent human desire and need and vital part of our lives.
Well, David, I want to ask a question, and I have often asked other authors this question. Um, again, I'm going to drop her name again, but you write about Broadway. Carol Channing, when she wrote her memoir, she said it's the loneliest profession to sit in a room and write a book. So you're writing a book, you're putting your thoughts on paper, the research on paper. Are you thinking, I mean, for all of us that appear on stages, we go out there and we get a sense of our audience from the moment we step out on stage. I'm sure I can speak for all of you when I say that. But as a writer, you are not necessarily experiencing what the reader, your audience, is getting from that. So as you're writing your book, are you thinking about the audience that you're writing for?
Very, very much. And I have an advantage maybe in that regard because the book is inspired by the course that I teach at the University of Washington School of Drama, which is a course called The Broadway Musical, How Immigrant Jewish, Queer, and Black Artists Invented the Broadway Musical. So a lot of this is drawn or at least inspired by the lectures that I have had the opportunity to teach now multiple times since 2019 to actual students sitting. I have a 100-person lecture class, which is very much like doing a cabaret show, basically. You know, you're in the room and you have to engage this audience with this material, with this history that you're talking about. So it's not a transcript of my lectures, but the book is very much drawn from material that I've tried out on the audience. I've had an out-of-town tryout for my book, live and in person.
I love that. Well, let me ask you this question, and then I'm going to bring on Ellen, who's waiting very patiently in the wings. Can you recall a moment when telling the truth that you want to tell felt risky, but it was necessary for you to tell that truth? And how did it change the way that you approach your writing?
This book in some ways is risky. It's more risky when it came out than it was when I started writing it because our culture has shifted so much over the last couple of years. And a reviewer just recently said this Trump-defying book. And of course, it wasn't written as a Trump-defying book, but it absolutely is telling the truth about who invented the Broadway musical. 99.9% of the artists who have created and sustained the Broadway musical were immigrant, Jewish, queer, Black women. Women are a big part of the book. They're not in the title because all those other categories include women. So it felt weird to put women in the title when they were already there, but they are certainly highlighted in the book. And what's so interesting is for all those categories, they are part of the Broadway musical from the very beginning, from the earliest days of the Broadway musical. There are women, there are Black artists, there are queer artists in leadership positions, which they have stayed in or handed down to other people throughout the whole 125 years of the history of the Broadway musical. So that I did have a little hesitation at one point as we were rolling it out and thinking, was this going to be controversial now? And it hasn't. I'm sure it is with some people. I'm sure there are some attitudes about that, but I can just respond by saying this is absolutely the facts. This is just the facts, ma'am.
Well, I highly recommend the book. It's a great book, and I have it on my shelf. I love it. And speaking of great books, our next guest, completely different change of pace. She and her incredible partner, Valerie, who's watching, they wrote this book about their experiences during the AIDS crisis. And it is, I couldn't put it down the first time I read it. And I went back and read it again after you brought the book to my show recently. So Ellen, thank you for being here. I always love having you on the show. Again, anything that we've talked about that you want to build upon, or you can take us down your own path.
Well, it's interesting that I am not a cabaret performer, but I do love to dance. And there's a couple of things that I found very interesting when Jane was talking about teaching and directing, and Judith was talking about teaching and directing. All of you in some way are teaching and directing, and David now teaching. I am a nursing professor now after being a nurse for 48 years. And so I am teaching and directing nursing students on how to be nurses. And I was thinking when you sent out the email about usefulness in the art, in our art, and nursing is an art, and it is a science. And the synonyms for usefulness include things like effectiveness, practicality, relevance, beneficial, and all of those things are things that, and I'm going to add compassion and empathy, are things that I'm teaching to brand new nursing students who are the future of healthcare. And when you think about it, it's a very tall responsibility. I want nurses who I know I would be comfortable taking care of me should I need a nurse, or my mother, or any one of my families. And over the 8 years I have just been doing this, as many of you said, your students have gone on to be big performers. Well, my students have gone on to be nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, gone on to bigger and better things in the world of nursing. Which then brings me to Valerie, who I think is out there.
He's watching, yes.
Valerie and I wrote this book about our experiences before we knew what AIDS even was, back in the late 70s, and then throughout the 90s. Valerie continued in HIV research when I went back to being a nurse in critical care. And the purpose of Nurses on the Inside was really not for entertainment. It was to show our lived experience and the horrors that was the tsunami of AIDS in New York City during that time. And we re-released the book because of what has just happened in our current administration with the decrease in funding to HIV research, treatment, and education. And our purpose, again, is to not let people forget that we lost an entire generation. And we also lost an entire generation of performers. Originally, when Valerie and I began our nursing in HIV, I would say probably close to 75% of men and women that we treated were performers. They were from Broadway, they were dancers, they were choreographers.
La Cage aux Folles, and David, I'm sure you know this as well, but most of those chorus boys in La Cage aux Folles, one by one, were just dying off.
The AIDS epidemic plays a huge part in my book. There's a big section about the effect that it had on Broadway, in both the devastating effect that it had on the especially American performers, and then the sort of opportunity that created, unfortunately, for, I don't mean this unfortunately because of the tragedy of it, but then the British invasion would not have happened if the AIDS epidemic hadn't happened. So we wouldn't likely have had that wave of British musicals if there wasn't suddenly this vacuum that needed to be filled. So it's very fascinating how these things, and so much of the book is about American history, but in this case, the AIDS epidemic is a big part of it. I have a list of all the Broadway artists who died of AIDS in the book, actually.
Wow.
Many of them, there were many notable people that
Michael Bennett,
we personally took care of in our designated AIDS center. And Val and I are actually currently working with a producer to have our book become a screenplay.
It has to. It has to.
We are hoping. I mean, we do have a lot of support in that area But before Nurses on the Inside, there our producer was working with somebody who has since unfortunately passed, a wonderful man named Kieran Turner, who is a director and screenplay in the entertainment industry, and he was actually writing a screenplay called Ghost Lights. It was about how AIDS decimated the theater.
Wow.
And our producer Jason has vowed to finish that work and possibly combine it with our book Nurses on the Inside, because we took care of so many people from the theater.
Wow.
I don't know if many of you are aware of the show Elegies for Angels, Punks, and Raging Queens, which is
yes.
I performed in that. Mary Mount did it about 10 years ago, and Bill Russell, who wrote it, directed it, but it's all testimonies from real experiences from people. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Amazing. Ellen, I wanted to ask you, and then I'm going to go around and I've got questions for each of you. But Ellen, do you feel that usefulness can exist in failure? And if you can tell us about a time where, I mean, you and Valerie were working through, for lack of a better word, a fog, because nobody knew what was on the other side of that. This was unprecedented. People were not living, people were not used to this. And there was also a stigma against, catching it, and how you could catch it and all of that. What got you through that fog?
Well, when you talk about failure, I mean, when we became nurses, I mean, Val and I are nurses pretty much the same amount of time. Val has probably a year on me, but we go into the healthcare field to cure people. People get better. They have surgery. They get better. They have a disease or a condition, and they get better. And then we had AIDS, and people didn't get better. And so I remember Val and I had many, many conversations early on when we used to have our late nights after work and talk about, like, what is going on here? I mean, we again, early on, with no cell phones, social media, computers, I mean, we thought we were in a vacuum. We didn't know that we were not the only hospital seeing people with AIDS. I mean, it wasn't until many years later that we started to network with other hospitals and realized that the entire country was having the same problem. But failure was the patients were dying, and we felt like we were failing in some way. And why couldn't we come up with a cure? What was we racked our brains over this. We had conversations about what could be causing this. We did not know for many years what was causing this. And as far as getting through the fog, Valerie and I were just determined to make people, if we couldn't cure people, is to make people as comfortable as possible. So the patient may have passed, and it happens with where I am now, because I'm working with a geriatric population with my students, is having people pass but be comfortable and be at peace in that passing, so that then it becomes successful and not a failure if the patient dies. As painful as it is and was to see people pass, they never were alone. And if they had no family, we were their family. And we made every attempt to make sure that everybody was comforted and comfortable.
Thank you for that, Ellen. On behalf of everybody, thank you for that. So I've got a question that I want to ask each of you. Sorry. Jane, how do collaboration and community make your art more useful to you and to others?
How do collaboration? Well, first of all, my workshops, I could never do them without a wonderful accompanist. So that is a wonderful collaboration. Also, also the different, I have an independent studio. I work for Marymount Manhattan College and Paper Mill Playhouse. So getting support from those institutions also helps. But I mean, the whole world is nothing but collaboration. I mean,
Mhm.
everything we do, we have to collaborate. So, I mean, like,
Which, if I may interrupt,
yes,
is why this country is as divided as it is right now. We need collaboration
yeah,
across the boards.
yeah. I mean, we all drive on streets, we cross bridges, we go to, our kids go to schools. We're all a part of the same. We're all a part of it. So that, anyway, sorry, I'm digressing, but
No, absolutely.
um, I had a thought, it slipped right out of my head. There's my ADHD
Hmm.
going for me. Did I answer that question? Did I answer
Yes,
it?
you did. You did.
Okay.
Yes, you did. Judy, what role does mentorship or legacy play in making art that lasts beyond this moment?
Oh, that's such an excellent question. Well, I think that's almost like the collaboration. Mentorship is taking on a communication with another person and doing your very best to help them get what they want in a certain sense, and help them find everything they need. I don't know. I think mentorship. I mean, I've worked hard to do that my whole life because I really love supporting other people in whatever they want to do,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
primarily in cabaret. So I think that's an interesting question, and I hope I'm answering it, but it means the world to me, what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. Lisa, and I probably know the answer based on who you and what are and what you do. But how can we measure usefulness in art without reducing it to popularity or profit? Um, I'm going to stop for a moment, and Jane, we're going to get to your two films in just a moment. But last week, I went to see Kiss of the Spider Woman,
Mm.
which I absolutely loved. I just came out of the film feeling. I mean, there were so many levels of emotion that I went through in this film, and yet it's been pulled out of most movie theaters because it was not finding its audience. And there was a time where films had the luxury of finding an audience. Broadway shows had the luxury of finding an audience, and that's missing now. So, how do you feel that we can measure usefulness in art without relying on the bottom line, the almighty dollar, the profit, popularity?
I mean, now it seems like since this we have so much virtual and video has become a thing, I feel like um, we can reach, by if we have a recording or I mean, I'm not a big like Instagram video person, but people are really reaching people without finding, without having to have a big house to fill, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
For me, the usefulness really like I see speech. I'm a speech therapist, so Ellen, I know you know what that is. It's this. I see one or two group people in a group, and if I feel like I always think of that Maya Angelou quote, and whether it's I'm singing to 15 people in a cabaret room, which happens, or I'm putting a video, something I recorded out, and only like 10 people hear it, or you know, singing, getting to sing at the cabaret convention, and there's a bunch of people that hear it,
Mhm.
or if I'm doing speech therapy and I could somehow like drop my stuff and make it about the person in front of me, and then they feel a little better after having spent a little time together. That's how I sort of measure the usefulness.
That's wonderful.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. David, if someone in your classroom or if I mean you've been on both sides of the footlights as well. So if someone feels that their art doesn't matter, their stories that they want to tell doesn't matter, what would you tell them to help them see the usefulness in who they are and what they do?
Well, I think I'd go back to something Ellen said, which was empathy. And one of the things I firmly believe, and I talk a little bit about in the book, is that musical theater, and again, in the broadest sense, I include all cabaret shows. I came from the cabaret world as well. And are empathy machines. They create empathy in us. They are a vehicle for inspiring empathy. And empathy is one of the things that the world needs the most right now, I believe, is just putting ourselves, seeing ourselves in through other people, through other people's experience. And I completely identifying, putting ourselves in their shoes is what art does. All art is inspires empathy. And the more we have empathy, the more the world will be, frankly, a better place, because it's part of what we're facing right now is this sort of anti-empathetic mindset that I think art has to battle against and does battle against naturally.
Amen. Ellen, similar question to you. When one of your students feels that they don't have what it takes to be a nurse or to be in this profession, what advice do you give them to help them find where they really do fit in this profession?
Well, there are people that self-select out of a nursing program along the way, and that happens for various reasons. Some personal medical reasons for the students, or inability to afford the program, and sometimes I've had students that on the first week when we've gone in to see a patient, and all of a sudden I realize they're getting queasy and they're going to go out because they've seen something that they haven't seen before. Some sort of drainage. Let me just caption it that way. And I've had to take students out of a room and say, sit down, okay, let's get you some water, and let's see if you're going to be able to go back into the room, because you really do need to get in there and see these patients from head to toe. And often there are times when they say, no, I really don't think I'm going to be able to do this. But then there's many students who I know can do this. And they have to be able to pass the program, which is a very rigorous 11-month program. And they have to pass all their classrooms, and then they have to pass the clinical. And I'm in the clinical side of it. And I often tell them, if you have the will and the drive to do this, then I will teach you. Give you 48 years of my brain in nursing to teach you how to recognize signs and symptoms of when somebody is deteriorating and what to do. And at some point during the semesters that I am in, we will have a geriatric patient who will be becoming ill. And if I can teach them the signs and symptoms to recognize, so that we can head this off and treat them before they need to go to the hospital or before something horrendous happens. And then they feel successful. Now, the other thing I just wanted to mention was that we're in long-term care. This is where we start the program, is in long-term care. And so these people live in nursing homes, and that's their home. And so we're like guests in somebody's home. And the two things I wanted to share with you. Number one, since you are all in the entertainment industry and talking about how music soothes your soul and so on. Well, in the geriatric population in the nursing homes, many of whom have dementia and other and Alzheimer's and behavior issues and so on, I will go into the dining area and recreation area, which is the same room, and I will put music on, and I will have my students and me dance. And residents who are supposedly not cognitive at all, hear music and clapping and stomping, and they wake up, and I've had residents who have had their head down on the table all day, and we put on a song and we start clapping and moving our hands around. And I have some fellow professors that may be on here that do this as well. And you see the light come back on in people's eyes when you put music on. Now, I don't sing. I don't sing well, but I sing in the nursing home. We will put some music on and we will sing with them. And there's a resident that every day she wants to hear the song Earth Angel. The only way she'll let us get her washed and dressed is if we put on the song Earth Angel and we sing it. And by the time we finish singing Earth Angel, we of course have it on the cell phone because I don't know all the words. And she sings it as much as she can. And guess what? By the end of her bath and getting her out of bed, she doesn't need her oxygen for a while because she's exercised her lungs from singing Earth Angel. So
well, Ellen, you just proved something. Music is oxygen.
Yes.
So we are running. We're going to run over, but Jane, I made a promise to you, and very quickly, you wanted to mention Blue Moon and Merrily We Roll Along, 2 films that are coming out. So very quickly, and then I'm going to say my final word, and then I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word today. So Jane, you've got the platform for a quick moment.
Well, if you get a chance to see Blue Moon, all of us on this platform and on the live stream must see it. The story, Ethan Hawke, it's a tour de force playing Loren's heart, and it's 2 days in his life, and it's toward the end of his life. But it's just a magnificent. Anyone who's in all the references to the music that he wrote with Richard Rodgers, and Andrew Scott plays Richard Rodgers. Now there's an obese actor, I don't know who it is, who plays Oscar Hammerstein, who wasn't ever that big. But then he's with this 12-year-old boy that he refers to as Steve. This is the opening night of Oklahoma on Broadway. Refers to this 12-year-old boy as Steve, and I'm going, wait a minute, I've worked with Jamie, his one son, who directed me in Sound of Music, Marie Osmond. And what's the other son's name? It wasn't Steve, and that is, it was Stephen Sondheim, of course. Because he asks him to analyze. Anyway, it's just really fun for anyone who's in this world. Other people may not get it as much, but I hope that you would enjoy it, Ellen. I hope you would really enjoy it. And then Merrily We Roll Along is a film now of the Broadway production. And I have to say, Jonathan Groff, I want my students to see it because he's a study in stillness and just everything that you would want a performer to do and be, he's got it. He just got that thing. He's so magnetic on screen. So anyway, for my musical theater students, I'm telling them all, any acting students, and my daughter, who's just had a birthday yesterday, celebrating my daughter at 29 yesterday. She said, and she's so observant, she thought Blue Moon should be made into a stage production because it's like a continuous monologue by Ethan Hawke playing Loren's heart, and everyone else is listening, Bobby Cannavale and Andrew Scott. I just adore him. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to rave about those two.
Thank you for that. I want to thank you all for being here today, and I'm going to give you each a chance to have your final word. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with today. When I finish, I will turn the screen over to one of you, and then you will speak, and then at the end, when the last person says goodbye, I will end the show so you don't have to worry about it. I want a little selfish promotion right here. 2 events that I have coming up. Next Saturday night, if you are in New York, they're going to be screening Clue at the King's Theater, which is an old movie theater in Brooklyn. And I am going to interview Leslie Ann Warren after the film. And I've interviewed her a few times. And so I'm thrilled that we're going to be on stage together again. I just love her. If she's watching, Leslie, you know how I feel about you. Just am crazy about her. And then on the 21st, I'm going to be back at the Laurie Beachman Theater. This will be my second encore of this show. Reservations going fast, so reserve. And if anyone watching is interested in seeing the show, Ellen saw it the last time around, reach out to me because I have discount codes that I can give you to get in. Reach out to me, Jane, and I'll get it to you. I always end my shows with the same message, and that is to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. I also tell everyone, and I've got my reasons for this. Today, I want you all to pick up your phones right now, and the second name that pops up for you, I want you to reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know that they matter in your life. And by doing so, you're going to make a huge difference in their life. I have a theory, since these topics came up during the show, that the reason that the world is where it is right now is because of a lack of empathy. And I believe a lot of that lack of empathy has disappeared because people feel that this is their only method of communication. A like or an emoji is the only way that some people are communicating these days. And studies are showing that it's really destroying our kids. So make that phone call. Second name that pops up today, let them know what they mean in your life, and let me know how it goes, because I want to hear your response to this. I have a dear friend, Sean Moniger, and he says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. I'm going to leave the screen. I'm going to turn it over to you, Judy. And when you finish, you'll pick the next person, and so on and so on. And I will see you around town. I love you all. Have a great day. Judy, it's all yours.
All right. Love you, Richard. It has been a great joy to be on today. And I have loved hearing the passion that everyone showed today about all that we do and all that you do. So I'm very grateful to all of you. You've really brightened my day. So thank you. Oh, and I have to say somebody. Okay, Lisa.
Richard, it's funny you said Sean Moninger. That told me exactly that I was thinking the right thing to say, which was I wanted to say, quote David Friedman, that maybe we'll find true peace of mind if we always remember we can be kind. Jane?
I am speechless, because this has just been a fantastic afternoon with all of you and reconnecting with David. And I just want to say, keep making art. Let it come from your heart. I have no famous quote, but I'm so thrilled that Richard asked me to be on here today. And it's been wonderful to meet Ellen, and I know Lisa, and then wonderful to meet, Judith. Yes. Loved you all. Thank you. And I picked David.
Thanks, Jane. It's great to see you. Jane and I have maybe last seen each other 40 years ago, but we knew each other very well a long time ago. The thing that amazed me about today is you might have looked at this collection of people and thought, what do they have in common? And healing seemed to be the theme that we all have in common, and I firmly believe. And even Ellen just talked about how she's a musical theater performer in her own way. And I think that's exactly that effect that you have on those people that are struggling, is the exact same effect that all musical theater people performers have on the audience. It's somehow an inherently healing art form. The music, the story, everything about it. So, of course, I'm going to turn it over to Ellen, because she's the only one left. Okay.
Yes.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Richard. Always a pleasure to be on your show. And I was so thrilled to finally see you at the Laurie Beachman Theater. And for those of you watching, if you haven't seen him, you really must. And, to just piggyback on music and dance and illness, I use it almost every day with my students, and some of them are embarrassed, and I say, don't be embarrassed. This is not about you. This is about making somebody's day better today than it was the day before. And if we can do that, I will teach you the rest. But making somebody smile, making somebody wake up, making somebody breathe better by singing a song is just one of the most rewarding times that I can ever think of during this current time in my nursing career. And I thank you all for having me, and it was wonderful to meet you, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Thank you, Richard.